Good morning, everyone. I would love to introduce our amazing expert for our first Lego League Challenge season. This year, we have Christy. Christy, you are one of the really great, awesome volunteers for our entire Kids Robotic Academy and Kids Robotic Foundation. A lot of kids are going to see what you're going to be sharing with us. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, tell us about your background, tell us that you're giving us a great, good Saturday time dedicating to all of our students and parents. I really appreciate you. Take it away.
Awesome. Okay. My name is Christi Gell, and I am a geologist. And so I love rocks, and I wanted to be an engineer when I was a kid. And it took me a couple of years in college to realize that really my passion and my love was in the area of the environment. So here's a photo of me with my favorite thing in the whole world, minus my family, which is rocks. I initially got into geology because I wanted to be a paleontologist, which is somebody who, and for me, was I wanted to look for dinosaurs. Okay. And this is a picture of me with my, hold on, let me just, with my, one of my paleontology heroes, Dr. Robert Backer. And he is one of the guys, if you've ever seen the movie Jurassic Park, he was one of the kind of consultants on the movie and actually works a lot of times at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. I actually, though, work in oil and gas. And this is actually where I met David's mom. And I worked at Halliburton right here. So, as a geologist, I worked on finding where oil and gas is and using my geology skills to do that. And really cool. I worked offshore for a little bit. I got to go and be on a drill ship, and we used this cool robot called an ROV. Okay, so it's a like an underwater vehicle, remote operated vehicle that they could send down because we were drilling at something like 10,000 feet of water. I do a lot of mapping, so I do a lot of mapping as a geologist. And then finally, the bulk of my career as a geologist has been spent in the world of trying to figure out what does the world look like? What do the rocks look like underneath the ground? Because we can see everything that's on top, but we can't see what's underground with, for sure with our eyes. So we have to use different types of tools to help us understand what we're looking at. And the thing that I love to tell people about geology is the present is the key to the past. So, what you're seeing right now gives you clues on what happened in the past. Okay. So, so as I just got done telling you, so we've got, let me just minimize this. Sorry, too many windows around. Okay, so in my career, you can say, I got into geology because I love rocks. Okay, but I've also done things around paleontology. I've done things around chemistry. I worked with chemistry stuff at Halliburton. I've done engineering. So the part here is that my career and my life is made up of a lot of different areas. It's not just geology, it's a lot of different things. So within the world of archaeology, geology is one piece of this. And I keep going back and forth. So let me see here. Yeah. Okay. So, but there's ecology, there's anthropology, there's geography, computer science, art, history, biology, paleontology, environmental science, physics, chemistry. All of these things are part of archaeology. So just like in my career, I've had different areas, different scientific areas and even non-scientific areas that I work with. Archaeology also has this, and they all come together to really form a big picture of what's going on, which is archaeology. Okay, and this is a picture from Utah. Oh, sorry, this one's in New Mexico, and it's an ancient Puebloan uh, uh, housing area, community infrastructure here that I just saw this last summer. Okay, So let's start here. So an archaeologist, I love to say, is like the detective of the world. They're trying to figure out what did our what did our ancestors, what did people do in the past? And geologists, they're part of the team. They're part of the forensics team that are looking for clues to figure out what it happened here when they're looking at this world of ancient people. And so before we get started, then we're going to do Geology 101. So, show of hands, and maybe if we have people online, you can come off on mute. Let's talk about what are the three types of rocks. Does anyone know this? Anyone online know it? And Coach D, you'll probably have like access to them online. So if they are, can you like let me know? Okay, so anyone know what the three types of rocks are? Or maybe how they're formed? Okay, so I'll give you a clue. One is sedimentary, one is metamorphic.
One of them,
Oh,
Nathan and Felix.
okay, yeah. So Nathan, Felix, tell us.
Um, I know, yeah, sedimentary, metamorphic, and igneous.
Okay, awesome. Who was that? Was that Nathan? Okay,
Yeah.
so Felix, I think you also knew, right? Do you know how those are formed?
Um, Igneous is formed by lava cooling, I'm pretty sure. Sedimentary is sediments getting compacted and glued together, basically.
Mhm.
And metamorphic is heat and pressure, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly. So rocks that have been under heat and pressure and it changes those. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we already talked about some of those characteristics. Like a sedimentary rock has pieces of other rocks they're made up of other pieces of them. And then the igneous rocks are made up of like the magma and the lava from this. So let me ask you guys something. Think about where we live in Houston. Okay. Do we see volcanic rocks anywhere in Houston, like in the ground?
Um,
Do we see them here?
Maybe there were volcanoes like hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. So in maybe, but our area was actually used to be underwater. So the
Oh.
volcanic areas of Texas are out more in the western areas. So my point here is that not all types of rocks are found everywhere and even in the past. So you have to think to yourself, okay, so now start putting the pieces together. So if not all types of rocks are found everywhere, then as an archaeologist, that tells you something. I just had some of my rocks die. That's okay. Okay. Um, okay. So, what I want to do, and what I want to do is, I don't know if you all at home, so these are the types of rocks. Thank you, Felix and Nathan, for telling us this. And these are the kind of different features of those kinds of rocks. So, we're going to start and we're going to do a little experiment. And David, and what is your name? Nathan? Oh, we have two Nathans on the team. Okay, awesome. Okay, so if you are at home and you have a piece of bread, then grab that. Nathan and David, you guys can come up here. Come on up. Okay, so we're going to use a piece of chalk. All right, so for those of you at home, we're going to have a piece of chalk. Okay, we have what I'm going to call a sedimentary rock, which is a brick. And then we have an igneous rock, which is, as we know, volcanic. I do not have a metamorphic rock today because for this particular point, we don't really need it. Okay. So if you have your bread, I want you to get it out and I want you to just kind of rub, and you guys can use your chalk, and I want you to just rub your fingernail on the chalk or the bread and ask me, okay, so is the chalk coming off with your fingernail? A little bit? Yeah, it's kind of soft, isn't it? So if you guys, does anyone at home have bread? Anyone at home doing this on their bread? Okay, bread's pretty soft though. Okay, we all know what bread is. Okay, so next, if you have a piece of wood or a rock, okay, you guys can do this. I want you to pick it up and I want you to kind of rub your finger on the piece of wood or the rock and see if your fingernail will scratch that. Is any of the rock coming off with your fingernail? No, right? In fact, your fingernail is probably getting right. Okay. Now, here's the igneous rock. Okay, so it's got different minerals in it. Try that. Now we're going to try this. You can keep doing it with your rock at home if you want. What I don't want you to do is scratch. You can rub your fingernail like on your countertop in the kitchen, but don't do like a nail or a fork with that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, so we have screws in ours. Okay, now I want you to take your chalk or your bread, and I want you to see if you can scratch the chalk or bread with your screw or a fork at home, your bread if you're at the home. Okay, all right. Tell me what's going on, Nathan, here with the chalk and the screw.
The screw is scratching some of the chalk off.
Yeah, so the screw is scratching some of the chalk off. Like it's really easy. And I'm sure, so if anyone has bread at home, I'm going to guess that that screw is making some pretty big indentions on that. Yeah? Okay, so let's try. We're going to try, you guys, if you have wood at home or a regular rock like that you got out of your garden, grab that. We're going to try this here. So see if you can scratch this with the screw. Yeah, maybe a little bit, right? Yeah, you can do a little bit. Yeah, so look, I can do this. Okay, but I couldn't do it with we couldn't do it with our fingernails, right? Okay, so now we have three types of rocks. I don't know if you all have them, but we have a piece of granite. So right here, right here is on the screen. It says intrusive slow magmatic cooling. So we're going to take our screw right now, and we're going to see if we can scratch the granite. Are you able to scratch the granite?
Not really.
No, not really. Okay. So if we were going to rank the bread and the wood from home, or the chalk and the brick and the granite here, from softest to hardest, how would we rank them?
The chalk softest, this second softest, and this hardest.
Right, exactly. Okay, awesome. So y'all can go sit down. Let's put this here. So the reason I wanted to show you all this is because the types of rocks matter in terms of how things get preserved. Okay, so if we have a really, really, really soft rock like chalk, okay, because this is actually, chalk is made up of some minerals that are made in rocks. Things that are in this kind of rock tend to not get preserved very well. All right, because it's so soft. Sedimentary rocks are much harder, and they're kind of formed they're kind of everywhere, most places in the world. And this is a better way of getting preserved. Okay. For you people at home, talk to me a little bit about, say, something related to humans near volcanoes. Do you think those get preserved very well or not at home? We just heard they come from lava and magma, which is very cold or very hot? It's hot. Okay. So do you think that things that are human made probably get burned up by lava and magma? Yeah. So a lot of times, most times, things that are in an igneous area, like around that, they often do not get preserved very well. Okay. So I want y'all to keep that in mind. So we're setting the stage of what geology is. So that way, when you all go to figure out how you're going to build robots in different areas, you have these thoughts, you have these ideas. Okay, so this is why it's important. This is the little experiment we just did. Okay, so here's an example from the real world. I'm going to show you all a little bit of a video, and this is in Utah. And this guy was flying his drone around. So kind of a machine technology that we use to explore archaeology. And he noticed some dark features on this cliff. And he said, you know what? I think those might be things that were carved into the sandstone. Okay. So we just took our brick, which is like a sandstone, and we used a nail to carve into it, right? So you can carve into it, but it doesn't fall apart very easily. Okay. So let's take a look at what this looks like, because I want to show you all just different ways that geology and technology go together.
I thought, what is that? So I flew in closer, and I noticed that they're hand and footholds like the carved hand and footholds that we see sometimes. They're oftentimes called Moki steps, and they're right behind me. I'm gonna try to hike up there and see what they look like, because it's a more enjoyable experience.
Your father knows about.
So I'm skipping around here just so you all, so I just wanted to give y'all a view of what he was looking at. So I'm skipping around here so I can show you all what he starts climbing up. Okay.
Wow, here's the steps.
You right here?
I actually pressed the off button. Here we go. Look at these steps. Imagine ancient people climbing up this right here because they did. Wow. That's actually really easy. Yeah, they're up. And from what I saw on the drone, they go up left. And then up and over this big saddle right here. You would just have no idea.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go back to this footage here. This sheer cliff is what those carved indentions were in. And so normally when you're walking, you can't see this, okay? But he used some technology, his drone, to look and say, oh, something looks different there. And he was able to see those, okay? So that's I'm just telling you guys some things to just kind of pique your interest, okay? This is actually, let me hide this. This is actually this is something that I have seen. And if you can see right here, there is on the screen, there's a line in the rock. Now, this rock that we're walking on right here is a volcanic rock. So Felix and Nathan, your favorite, all right? Or you guys have some igneous rocks here, and it's called welded tuff. And if you ever know, you like welding and metal, it's you make a strong bond to hold things together. So it's basically volcanic ash that has been heated and pressed together so hot, so much that it becomes a super duper hard rock. And this was up on this hill, on this top of this mountain with some ancient structures that were there from about about 700 AD. And these were walking trails that, if you can imagine, because thousands of people used to live in this area, and just from thousands of people walking back and forth the same trail, they carved from their feet, just walking in here. But as a geologist, I know that they did not do what they did with the sandstone, because I know that this is super hard and that this is something that would take years and years and years to form from like repeated something repeating over it over and over, versus the sandstone, which could be carved because it's softer than this. So again, ways to use geology to understand what had happened. Okay, so my question is to you all, and let's see if anyone at home might know this. What would this look like if it was sandstone instead of welded tuff? Like, do you think we would still see it? Like, think about this brick. Think about if thousands of people had walked on this brick. Like, what would this trail look like if it was sandstone? Does anyone have any ideas, even online?
It would probably be a lot deeper and a lot wider.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think it might even not exist anymore? Like, if you think, like, I just replaced my porch steps because we had used them so much, like they fell apart. So a lot of times when something gets used over and over and over again, it'll fall apart. So you're right. It could be wider, it could be deeper, or could not even exist anymore versus this harder volcanic rock. So now we were able to, I was like, oh my God, this is ancient, ancient trail here, which was, I thought was super cool. Okay. So let me go back here. Okay. So geology gives us clues on how people lived. So finding a random rock that is not part of the surrounding geology. So I asked you all earlier, do we have volcanic rocks in Houston? We do not. Okay, we have sedimentary rocks, 100% sedimentary rocks. Okay, we were But here's something right here. I'm going to show y'all on screen. I don't know if you can see this. These are like green malachite beads. So let's say that you were in the sandstone area of Utah and you came across these malachite metamorphic rock beads. What might this tell you? And you can see they've got a hole in them, so you know darn sure that they are a bead. So they were on some necklace or whatever. So talk to me like what might you think if you found a bead that was of a rock that doesn't exist anywhere in that area?
Maybe it got moved.
How would it have gotten moved? Because it definitely was human made because it's got a hole in it, and you know that it was a bead from something like a necklace. So how would it have gotten moved?
Maybe from like someone picking up, or like wind or water moving it.
Yeah, that could happen. Let me ask you something. When you go to a store and you buy something and then you come home, okay, you're trading your money for something at the store. And a lot of times people would move around and they didn't have money back then, but they had objects like necklaces and pottery and different types of things that they could use for this hot, like blankets and things. And they would trade. And so this gave you an idea. Somebody from a different part of the world had come through there because somehow they got a hold of something that was made out of a material that did not even exist in this area. So this is a way that geologists can help archaeologists figure out. So then you start thinking, oh, where is malachite? Where could this have been from? And then you start going through because geologists know in like, especially like the United States, anywhere like, oh, this type of rock is found in these areas. Okay, so this is just ways like start thinking about like the types of rocks matter in the areas that archaeologists are working. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what do people need to live. So David, what are some things like not like you want a Nintendo system, but what do you actually need to survive?
Water and food.
Water, food, that's right. What else?
Warmth.
Warmth, exactly. Nathan, you have any ideas about needs?
Air, clothes.
Yep, air, clothes. Any other ideas from people online?
Shelter.
Shelter, exactly. Those are all really awesome. Okay, and then I also try to think about what do people want to preserve. Okay, so a lot of times let's think about like cemeteries. They've got markers and the people are buried and whatever. So a lot of times people want to go back and visit their ancestors and they want to preserve that. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about how geology can help with this. So this is from Peru, and this is an oasis in the desert. And I went here, it's called Huacachina, and there are these sand dunes. And we went here and it was amazing. And so people for thousands of years have been living in this area because who mentioned water? David mentioned water. Water is a necessity. You have to have water in order to survive. So people would people would congregate around areas of water because they needed that to live. And so archaeologists can say, okay, hey, geologists, where are some ancient sources of water? What types of geologic settings should we be looking for in order to say, hey, if we go to these areas that used to have a lot of water around it, I bet you we'll find artifacts. Okay, so what is an artifact? Does anyone remember what the definition of an artifact is? I don't know if anyone online knows.
Is it like a human-made like item?
Yes, it's a human-made item, exactly. So let's say a shell. Is a shell an artifact or not? No, it's not because it's not human-made, okay? What about a screw? Is a screw an artifact? Yeah, because it's human made, right? Okay. What about the rock malachite? Is that an artifact? No. But what about a bead made out of malachite? Yes, exactly. Okay. Exactly. So you guys are getting the idea. All right. So, so necessities, things that we have to live. So water. Okay. This is another example from my life. So this is an area in New Mexico that is kind of northeast of El Paso, and it is called Otero Mesa. And there used to be a spring right around here that has since stopped flowing, but I'm going to show you what we found when we went to this. So this was like, oh my God, an hour and a half down this dirt road. We didn't see a single person the whole time we were there. And this is what we found. Do you all see what's on the screen here? Do you see all the do you guys see all this? Yeah. Okay. Oh gosh. Now, not only did we see these carvings in the rock, but we also found a bunch of older, more modern items that were from like the 1800s. Okay. So this is a tin can that's super duper old. And there was like a whole pile of trash area. And so what had happened, this actually used to be a stop on the mail route. Gosh, what was it called? The Wells, what was the Pony Express, or, for delivering mail. And they would have different stops where they knew like they could get water and whatever. And so this used to be a stop. And so there was actually an old house there. There was a grave that we saw. But so not only were there's evidence of humans from about, again, like 700 AD, but also more modern humans. And once that spring dried up, guess what? Where did the humans go? Anyone have an idea? Did they stay or did they go? Yeah, they went. Exactly. And why was that? Because their water disappeared. So they said, oh, we got to go. Okay. So this stuff you can see. All right. So this is something that I visited this year, and this is in Utah. This is in the Bear Ears area, and you'll see that there were these like mud bricks that were made, and all these cliff dwellings. Now, the people who lived here were the Puebloan, and they were similar to the ones who lived in Mesa Verde in Colorado. And they lived inside these cliff overhangs that have this water running down the back of it. Okay, so the rock is sandstone. It's porous like a sponge, so it holds water, but it also releases the water. So they have water, and then they have this overhang that provides them what? Shelter. Somebody online mentioned shelter. So I want to show you this video. So when we were visiting this area, this particular site, a rainstorm came through. And so let me show you a video. Kind of jumpy. I don't know why. But this is the area. So the reason I did this, like, I was like those ancient Puebloans where I was taking shelter underneath where their houses were. And so I wasn't getting wet, but I was able to look out there. So there was water and there was shelter. And then, oops. Okay. We also found these. So there are pictographs and petroglyphs. So these are petroglyphs because they're carved into the rock. Okay. So if this was made up of granite, would we have seen? Would we? No. Would we have seen? No, we wouldn't have seen petroglyphs, right? We might have seen pictographs. Pictographs are paintings. Okay, so these are paintings. Now, the other thing we found, which was totally cool, this is my son, Eric, and he's holding 2 corn cobs. Okay, Now, these corn cobs are not from somebody like me who visited. These are ancient corn cobs from like 700 AD. How did they survive? Does anyone online have an idea of how they are still around? Like, look at the rocks of the area, okay? And I want you to think about like, like I've shown you like desert type stuff. And how do you think something survives for so long, just out in the air without, you know, degrading at all? Does anyone online have any ideas?
Maybe it was dried out.
Yeah, exactly. It's dried out and it's so dry there. So you know how in here in the summer in Houston, well, all the time, you go outside and you immediately start sweating. It's because it's so humid. There's so much water in the air. Where we were here, there's like 20% humidity, if that, like more like 10%. And it's very, very, very dry. And so as a geologist, that's the kind of thing that we know about because the types of rocks that are here are formed in a dry, we have a lot of them that are in a dry climate. And so this helps us understand like, well, if you go someplace where it's dry, I bet you a lot of artifacts and things related to humans will survive. Okay. Okay. So then I want to talk about what about major geologic events? Okay. Anyone know? Has anyone ever heard of Pompeii? Anyone online ever heard of Pompeii? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you know about it?
I know that volcano Mount Vesuvius
Mhm.
destroyed it.
Yes, exactly. So I'm going to show you another. Um, this is not a real video of Pompeii, of course. It's an animation of what this looks like or what it could have looked like. Okay, so I'm going to play this. So basically, you can see that there's some smoke coming up, and we're gonna fast forward through this because it's an 8-minute video. But you can see like all of a sudden, smoke's starting to come, and then PetSmart shows up. So hold on, we'll wait for the okay, and then time goes by. It's nighttime, and then it's 1 p.m. Kind of the next day and things start happening. Okay. So now you can see that there's really a lot of ash and things coming up. And if I lived here, do you see this explosion now? And look at the roofs. See how the tiles are falling down. So things are happening because of geology. Okay. Like the earth is moving. And if I lived here, I would be freaking out right now. Okay. So this is going on. We're gonna keep fast forwarding. Okay. So now it kind of became dark because there was so much ash in the air from the volcano that it blocked out the sun. And you can see how it's landing on the roofs, etc. And then things keep going. It's 5 p.m. So we're 4 hours later. And life is not really good for the people of Pompeii at this point because now lava has really gotten there. The ashes, have you guys seen wildfires around here? Like one little ember can go and catch things on fire. So now things are really bad. And some people have left and some people have stayed or gotten caught. And then kind of it goes on, and you can see how things are really starting to be bad for them. So I'm going to move on to it's kind of the next day and look at this. The entire city is covered in ash and lava flows. And here comes the major event. And this isn't just ash, this is hot, hot ash. And it just engulfs the entire city and anybody who's left there. And what's left is this desolate area that eventually recovers and grass grows all over it and whatever. And it gets forgotten about. And then somebody discovers it. The first I think it was like the 1500s is when somebody first found something related to Pompeii. And it wasn't until around the 1700s that people really started understanding kind of what had gotten on, what had happened, and they started finding frescoes like paintings on the wall and things like that. But this is a major, major geologic event. Okay, so that's Pompeii. And then let's talk about, so I lived in Malaysia for work. Okay, I'm a geologist working in Malaysia, and I left in November 2004. And in December of 2004, a gigantic tsunami hit. There was an earthquake that caused a tsunami that killed, I mean, in one area of Indonesia alone, it was like 200,000 people. So it was massive. And what I'm showing you here on the right is a aerial view of one of those areas that got hit that shows what it looked like before and what it looked like after. Okay, so what happens is geologists, tsunamis have happened throughout all of time. Earthquakes have happened throughout all of time. Volcanoes have happened throughout all of time. Okay. And we see this and we can say, oh, we can look at the rocks and say, oh, see this layer right here? That was a volcanic eruption. Or you see this layer right here? That was a major flooding event, like a tsunami or something like that. Okay. So we look at the rocks and we can see that. And then archaeologists then can use that knowledge to understand. So what's going to happen is, thousands of years from now, somebody's going to go to this area of Asia and they're going to see in the rocks, they're going to see this marker that shows that there was this massive, massive event that happened. Okay. So now I want to talk about what kinds of technologies help out understanding the geology and what's going on. Okay. So first of all, this is a lava tube. So there was a tree that was there, and the outside of it burned so hot that it kind of it sort of like solidified really hard, and then afterwards the inside just disintegrated and burned up, and what was left behind was this gigantic hole. Okay, so I don't know if you guys know much about Pompeii, but one of the guys who found it, he saw these holes in there. Okay, so what happened was the people who stayed, the hot ash hit them, killed them instantly. Okay, but it like preserved an outer, like it preserved the outer layer. Okay, and their form of it, and then over time the body disintegrated, and what was left was a hole, just like this tree here. And this guy, I can't remember his name, but he poured plaster into it. So the technology does not have to be super duper. I want y'all to think about this. Technology doesn't have to be robots. Technology can be, we're going to pour plaster into the hole so that way we can see what it looked like. So this was technology used in Pompeii, where he poured plaster in and then was able to cut away the ash and rock, and we're left with understanding. Now, as an archaeologist, you can understand what was going on. People were holding on to each other. People were crawling, trying to get away. And this is all from just very, very basic technology, literally pouring plaster into, understanding geology, a hole that was left in the ash. Okay, this is from Peru. I already showed you an oasis and sand dunes from Peru. This is an area called Nazca. So you see it's desert, mountains, whatever. So there's a thing there called the Nazca lines, las líneas de Nazca. And the only way, if you're walking along the desert floor, you would have no idea that they were even there. The only way to see them is from up high in the air. So these things had existed for thousands of years. And by the way, we don't even know why they were done. Okay, I'm going to show you what they look like. But the only way to see them is through a plane. Okay, so again, technology, you got to get up. Remember the drone with the stepping steps that we did? Okay, he couldn't see him by walking, but he could see him by having his drone up. Okay, so this is what the terrain looks like. You can see some old houses here. And then this is what you get to see. This is a monkey. There's a hummingbird. There's a spaceman. They're just lines, okay? And I'm going to throw this out there, okay? Bonus 5 points to anyone who can tell me how they think that these ancient people made these lines in the desert. It's very clever.
Did they like carve it?
That's a great, great guess, but no.
Maybe they plowed it.
Okay, you're super close. Okay, so exactly. So they didn't plow it, but what they did was they walked along the line. They walked along and they took the rocks and they moved them off to the side because the rocks on top were weathered and darker. And then when they moved them off to the side, what was underneath was the lighter sandstone rock. So these darker lines, like the outlines, are actually rocks that have been like pushed off to the side. Now, right now, people still maintain these because they're just so amazing. Literally thousands of years, and you would say, why did they make this monkey? Okay. There's one, I should have taken it. There's one of it, like literally it looks like a spaceman. And you have to ask yourself, what was going on where thousands of years ago somebody decided to create a piece of artwork that you could only see from up high of a spaceman. Okay, so again, geology, it tells you like the darker rocks. So this is how geology and archaeology get married together. Okay, now I want to show you this is something. So geophysics is a combination of geology and geophysics, and this is an area that I worked. Okay, so this is a kind of technology that we use. It's called seismic data, and it basically sends sound waves through the earth, and the different types of rocks have different densities, and the sound waves bounce back at different rates, and it gives you a picture of what it looks like under the ground. So everything you're seeing here right now is below the ground. And this particular technology, you see over on the right, you can start seeing ancient rivers that are under the earth, okay? Now, this data is created through sending shockwaves, big shockwaves. And that's really not good for archaeology areas because big dynamite and etc. can ruin archaeological sites. And so we have to find a different way to have physics help us out in the geology world. Okay, so that's something that I do in my work. And how does this go into archaeology? Okay, so let's see here. So we have something called ground penetrating radar. Okay, so what it does now, so I actually had it when I was learning about this. There was I would hold this like tube of a radar thing and walk along, and now they have this cool thing where it's actually like touching the ground and you can see things. So this is very you see the depth over here, okay, is in meters. And so right here, this is like half a meter. So how many how many feet is a meter, more or less? Anyone know?
3.
Yeah, so like 3 feet. So half a meter is 1.5 feet below the surface. Okay. And all of a sudden, so they can see like, oh, there's a channel and a wall. And they have some like handheld devices. So they're walking with it, or they have these handheld devices that they can put on the surface of things to try to see what's underneath it. Okay. I have another little video here. Hold on. So look at this video right here. So this is ground penetrating radar, and you get a whole set of it. It's not just one layer, it's a lot of different layers over and over again. And you can see here how it's showing the outline of a wall, of a room. And so this is a way that archaeologists use ground penetrating radar to find things that are underground without disturbing them. So most people think of archaeologists as going in and digging, which is part of it. Okay, but usually you don't want to just start digging unless you know what's there, unless you know what's there, because otherwise you could disturb it. So a lot of times they'll do like ground penetrating radar and some other things first. So then they say, oh, these are the areas that we want to go dig. Okay. Okay, mapping. So I told you guys like I do a lot of mapping as a geologist, but let me show you how you could do map. Let me show you some examples of types of maps that you can use like with archaeology data. So, okay. So this is they have something called GIS, Geographic Information Systems. So maps are really just pictures of layers of data on top of each other. And if you look at a paper map, usually like this paper map, like if I were to just look at this map right here, I'm going to zoom in here so we can look at kind of like Texas, Louisiana. This has a whole bunch of information on it, right? And so back in the day, this would have all been on paper. Now it's all on digitally. So you can add and you can take off different layers. So for instance, if I want to take off these like blocks and I want to zoom in a little bit more and look at some areas like this is in my job that I work now. Shell is one of my accounts. And I look at, oh, they've got these big tanks of oil right here. And so I can click on one and it can tell me what the tank is, who has it, et cetera, what's going on with it. So there's data behind it. And I don't need to like go to a different piece of paper in order to look at it. So this same kind of technology can be used in archaeology. So you can layer on different things. Okay. You can layer on like types of pottery that you found or types of rocks or whatever. So just areas that, kinds of things like that you want to do. Okay. I thought this was really cool. This is a robot that it maps out what's in front of it in real time. And so it uses this three-dimensional mapping to understand what's in front of it. So let me think about it. Okay, what about like the inside of a pyramid, like in ancient Egypt? All right. So how about the guys here, Nathan and David? How might a robot like this, like a robot dog, be useful for going into the different chambers of the ancient pyramids? Yeah. Or what is there, right? Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. What would make things dangerous?
Maybe like something that's not there.
Yeah, like stable. It might come crashing down on you. Amazing. Yeah. The other thing too is all the examples I've shown you so far are of archaeology sites that are above the water, above the ground. What about archaeology sites that are underneath the water? A lot of times those are super dangerous. Sunken ships, whatever. Okay. I want to show you guys this. This is really cool. You can look this up. This is the Mars rover. And they just announced that the Perseverance rover found evidence of possible evidence of life, and they used this robot to collect samples and also photographs. And I wanted to show you guys this picture because as you are building your robot, look at this thing. Okay, it looks like a Swiss Army knife of robots. Okay, it's got video and photos and scrapers and brushes and tubes and things to collect things to collect samples and a little laboratory in it so where it can like run some chemical analysis on it. This is the kind of like if you think about an archaeology like building some sort of robots for archaeology, some of them have to be able to do a lot of different things, and then others like that dog like this is very specialized. It's just for mapping. Okay, so when you're building out your robots, etc., and your projects, think about, does it need to be very specialized or do I need something that can do a whole bunch of different things? Okay. Okay, David, you stole my slide. Geological environments difficult or unsafe for humans. Okay, so I pull these out because robots have different like instruments that are on them. Like drones. This is a cool drone that's running. Sorry, here we go. It's going through more ads. I'm sorry. I don't have like, YouTube ad lists. But look, this is a drone that's flying underneath into these chambers. Okay. And look up at the top right, it's mapping out what it sees. So they're able to fly it through underground and go in here. So this would be a perfect example, David, of something that maybe people, well, there's a human, but maybe humans didn't want to be in, or a lot of humans, they don't want a whole lot of humans in there. They want to be able to map things out without endangering a whole bunch of people. Okay, I'm almost done, and then we'll open it up for questions. Sorry, I just got so excited about sharing all this stuff. Okay, so in summary, okay, so I wanted so we just got done talking about there are a lot of different types of technologies. I did not even touch on most of them, okay? But they're related to geology that help out archaeology. Okay? Major geologic events have a big impact on humans, okay? Think about Pompeii, think about the Asia tsunami, how it just changed the landscape completely. And they had a big impact on the humans that lived there. All right. We talked about human needs and how geology, when you think about what human needs are, understanding the geology can help archaeologists pinpoint where humans had been before. And I showed you the video of me sitting under the overhang and the rainstorm that came through. And that was the area that these people had lived. Because they had water, they had shelter, etc. Remembering that geology is just a piece of the archaeology puzzle. So archaeology is made up of so many different science and humanities, etc., working together. And it's just one little piece of it. And then finally, I started with just telling a little bit about myself and how my career has involved all different varieties of technologies. And even to this day, I keep changing it up. And so even though I'm a geologist and I love rocks and my house is covered in rocks, I also do a lot of stuff with technology too. And with that, I will ask, what do you think? And what's on your mind related to geology and what we talked about today?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christi. So everyone, we are going to open up for the questions now. And Christi is going to be here. She is ready to answer any questions you guys have. She went over some of the really great topics. I'll say she talked about how geology really helps with archaeology and all about it. I don't think anyone have explained this well. So I really thank you, Christi, for giving us hands-on and really, really sharing what we don't know. So really appreciate it.